be a good segue into introducing you all. So thank you everybody for joining today. Just a reminder that this is being recorded, and we have our workshop page under downtownlincoln.org under Connect, the Connect category, and we have all the workshops. So in lieu of our annual meeting this year, because of the pandemic and everything, we've decided to do all these workshops for our constituents and members and interested parties in downtown issues and broad scope issues as well. We had our first one a few weeks ago with panhandling and homeless awareness, and thought that went really well. And then on October 23rd, Jemalyn and Tyler, who are joining you today, did our first Social Media 101 Pandemic Edition workshop, and thought that went really well. And yeah, so we do have a lot of people that have been watching these after the fact as we put them on the website. So look forward to having more and more people be engaged with Tyler and Jemalyn. And today, yeah, I'm excited to have them. And Jemalyn Griffin is an integrated marketing communications industry expert, an advertising and PR professor of practice at the College of Journalism at the University of Nebraska, our neighbor just to the north here downtown. And Mr. Tyler Thomas is an award-winning digital strategist who builds brand engagement for the Big Red brand at University of Nebraska. Really excited to have both of them on again. Last time was very informative, and looking forward to this digital marketing information. Tyler's also a downtown resident with his family, wife and 2 kids, which again is the white whale of downtown Lincoln. We don't have a lot of that, so that's a fun perspective as well. And with that said, I'll hand it off to you, Jemalyn and Tyler, and I'll stop talking. So after they're presenting, feel free to type in any questions. We'll have Q&A after they're done presenting and go from there. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Todd. And thank you, Katie, for having us, and everybody for joining us this morning. We are excited to be here on this Friday morning. So I'm going to share my screen quick and we'll go into the presentation. But like Todd said, we do want this to be interactive. If you have questions and you don't want to forget them, please drop them into the chat. I know Katie's watching that for us. We will either answer them as we go or at the end as well. We want to make sure that we're providing, it is a workshop versus just a lecture. People learn better when you discuss things, ask questions, and get more detail. We purposefully left the presentation a little high level so that no matter if you or somebody on your team was to review it or watch it, you could have a really good conversation as a company, as a team, as an individual or team of one. And be able to take this information back to your organization and hopefully use it as soon as it makes sense. So we'll get into that real quick. All righty. So Digital Marketing 101. We purposely call these 101s just because we want to make sure that they are starting with the strategy, starting at the beginning, and really helping you create a foundation for going forward. I will present, and so will Jemalyn. We'll kind of go back and forth as we go through this. So here we go. The biggest piece with this is, as you probably are all feeling, especially as the pandemic hit, life is messy, but digital marketing is even messier. We've found that there are so many different things you can do. I teach a 16-week class, and every single week is a different tactic. And each tactic has its own nuances and intricacies and necessary understanding, and how do they all work together. It's just really messy, but part of that is communication, developing audiences, working with people right now is just really messy going forward. We have so much opportunity with technology. We have opportunity with face-to-face in capacities that's allowed. So anything that's really complicated or really busy, it tends to get messy. But Jemalyn and I are going to try to help at least create a little order to the messiness. I'm not Marie Kondo, but I will try to create some order in your life this morning, and at least hopefully have some great conversation about it as well. So I tend to keep things really simple. I like to oversimplify because I think that's what marketing is. Marketing isn't simple in the action, but it's simple in the planning. And if you stay focused around what we're going to call the 5, it should help you start making adjustments or traction, or maybe it will reassure you that you're on the right path. or lead to other questions. And that's where we like to keep it really simple. So to not overcomplicate the planning, because then the execution gets even messier and then it gets a little chaotic. So as we start with 5, the first thing we always have to think about, and I believe is the most important thing whenever you are communicating, marketing, trying to reach somebody, is really, who is that? Who is the ideal customer? Who is the ideal employee? Who is the ideal resident? Who is it that you are trying to communicate to, market to? And what do we know about them? Because the more we know about them, the better our content can be, the better we can make sure what we are giving them, the problems we're solving for them, the actions we want them to take, they can be in alignment. The who, like I said, it's number one because it is the most important piece. And as you're thinking about this, and I'll let Jemalyn talk a lot about this because she has developed personas for some really big companies and really complex ones. But what do we know about them? This current customer or a future customer. And we like to encourage you to, if the word customer doesn't fit your business, if that is you're doing employee recruitment, if you're own a business where you're trying to solicit other businesses or gain clients. So I put a lot of slashes there, but please put your goal audience in that bucket, because that is the most important piece that we're going to kind of focus in on.
Yeah. And I would just like to add to that, in terms of digital marketing, I always laugh when Tyler said earlier, digital marketing is messy, because I think a lot of small businesses and entrepreneurs, they think that in order to be successful in digital marketing, you have to have a large budget. And that includes with understanding your audience. And so I hope Tyler and I can be helpful in helping you gain specific tools that you can leverage that doesn't require a huge budget, because I know that, a common misconception within social media is that you have to pay to play, so to speak. But there are some real strategic tactics that you can leverage to better understand your audience. So when we talk about research, it doesn't mean research in the sense of academia. It really means just understanding who you want to talk to. And a good step in doing that is developing personas. Many small businesses and entrepreneurs already know somewhat what their base looks like in terms of who they want to target. But what I find when working with clients is that, oftentimes we think we're targeting one audience, and it turns out that our bread and butter, or the people who are actually very loyal, look a little bit different. And the more specific you can be, the better. So when you think about research, there's ways that you can better understand your audience. Whether it's going on your social media accounts and just taking a look at who are your current followers, right? Are they your current employees? Are they people who are actually engaging in your brand? Are they your family and friends, right? Because depending on who your audience is within your platforms and the mediums you're using, should really help you understand what type of content that audience is looking for. The other two types of tactics that I always tell clients to try and leverage for free are things like focus groups, where maybe you want to target young working millennials in downtown Lincoln. So you should maybe put together a group of 5 to 7 millennial professionals from downtown Lincoln and just pick their brain about what they like about your brand, what they don't like, what they want to improve about your brand, how do they currently engage with your brand. Just asking in-depth questions will help you understand the overall motivation, right, behind why they actually want to engage with your brand. And then the flip side of that is, everyone has participated in surveys. I'm sure all of you have participated in those, and that's a great way for it. Could even be a 2-question survey. I know Tyler is really great about tweeting out a question to his audiences, and people respond, right? And that's one question. There's nothing wrong with having a 2-way conversation with your audiences on your digital platforms. And that quantitative data, if wow, 100 people, come to my shop to purchase this item, which I didn't even know that was a popular item, that can help inform how you approach your future marketing.
Yeah, and some of the two with the digital pieces, being able to use some kind of coupon or incentive as well to get them to fill out the survey, or even at the end of a transaction, would you be willing to answer 2 questions? How did you hear about us? If you're buying something online, you'd probably know what they're purchasing. But any kind of data or identifiers, that's why if you look on websites that allow people to create profiles, so like where you can log in before you purchase, that is all information that you're able to gather and not have to continually update. So as you're looking at identifiers, like Jemalyn said, what do we know about people? Millennials that work downtown, but are they, millennials that live downtown as well? What do they need from us? But as specific as we can get with the who, that will help us with kind of step 2, which is the what. What do we want to be able to give them? What problem does the audience that we've identified have? And what are we as a business owner, entrepreneur, manager, whatever your title is, what is it that your organization, your business does that helps solve their problems? Because ultimately everything we're doing is solving somebody's problem. I was wanting coffee this morning, so I went and got coffee. I want to, learn how to do something, so I connect with somebody who can teach me how to do something. The biggest thing in the what is knowing that as it relates to an audience, because then you can really focus on making sure that whatever you're sharing in content, especially online, is connecting back to that problem that the audience has or the problems the audience has. And if you know a lot about them, you can connect it, especially if you're focusing on internal communication versus external, because marketing tactics can be and should be used in both, with both groups. So as you're thinking about this, what specific products are you interested in? Which services? What do you want to be able to accomplish? Do you need to generate leads in the sense of you need to collect information from them? Are you trying to hire somebody? Without real purpose in this what phase, creating content, making sure that your website works or your employees are informed about these things. With some of my clients, when we have quarterly product promotions, a big piece of the marketing isn't even external, it's internal training for the, it's a salon, so the stylists. So we put together our external marketing of how are we going to reach the audience who is, dealing with brittle hair in the summer, if that's an example. We want to make sure that we can solve their problem if they have that kind of issue with their hair. But we also know the marketing has to be internal to the stylist because they have to understand the promotions, they have to understand the benefits to the client, and they have to know how to, actually kind of do that selling. So we do a lot of digital marketing to the clients, but we do a lot of digital education to our staff. And one way we do a lot of that is we have a closed Facebook group, and we do Facebook Lives or updates so that during our staff meetings, there is that little educational piece that they can consume at their own time. And then in the staff meeting, we can use that really intentionally to discuss, to role play, to model, because the digital marketing will get them in the door. But if they are not planned or prepared to know the specials or to be able to really move that forward, getting them in the door works. So the digital marketing was great, but we can't seal the deal. And we want to make sure we close that loop. So as you're thinking about who you're focusing on, and there could be multiple audiences, it's then kind of just aligning the what problems are we trying to solve for them, and what do we want to accomplish so that we can start connecting that.
Yeah. And that's a great segue to exactly what I was going to talk about in terms of the what do you want to market really should align with the who, right? Which is why the who is first. When you think of who you're trying to target and what you're trying to quote unquote sell them or show them or raise awareness, I always tell my students that you're always trying to either raise awareness about a product, you're trying to change behavior or influence behavior in some way, whether you're trying to get them to purchase something or whether you just want them to come to your location or even share a piece of content, or you're trying to change their perception of your brand. Maybe you're a newer brand that has competitors locally, and you're just trying to get them to understand that you exist and that that you're a positive brand that they should buy from or engage with. And so it's important to align who are you trying to target and what do you want them to do. And I think it's important to understand that, when Tyler talks about what specific products and services, those types of products and services might resonate on different types of platforms. So when you think of, I remember when Snapchat first came out, everyone was like, oh, I want to target Gen Z, and all of Gen Z is on Snapchat. And so you saw an influx of advertising and marketers, really going to Snapchat. But what you found through research is that, yes, Gen Z is on Snapchat, but they're not actually wanting to engage with brands or buy brand products on Snapchat. So just because you know what you want to sell and who you're targeting, just be cognizant of what types of mediums they're actually leveraging to purchase products.
Perfect. And then we'll jump into number 3. That goes perfect to where. Like, where does this information need to live? Where are you driving traffic? So if you are trying to generate leads, so you're trying to collect information from a user, is that on an app that you either own, or a social media platform? Is the content on your website relevant to what you're trying to sell or connect with, or help people learn more about, or if they're downloading a coupon? As you're thinking of the where, marketing is the message, but if you want them to complete an action, we really have to think through that whole customer journey. So if I am on a social platform, I see your message, I'm ready to buy something, but then I can't actually complete that transaction. The marketing is working, but the whole loop has to connect. The customer journey is even more important now because people are becoming more savvy with the technology. So as you're thinking about who you're trying to connect with and what, and then you have to give them that next step of the where. So as I'm working with my students, it's always connecting them with, we can tell somebody that we have something, we know exactly who they are and where we want to reach them. But if they go to check out, or if they go to complete an action or can't complete the task that we want them to do, is the marketing really working? Like, we have a lot of views on the page, but if nobody submitted the form, we did something wrong, or we need to make a tweak. So as you're thinking about not only who you're connecting with and what specific messages resonate with each of those or products, it's really important to think of the where. And I have some really simple activities that I do with my students, and it's not supposed to be more than an hour, especially for a website. We interview, like Jemalyn said, we find people within the audience and we just ask them, please complete this action on the website. And then we just give them a phone or ask them to pull out their own device and see what they do. Are they able to do it quickly? Are they able to complete the transaction? Are they able to get the information that they're searching for? And it's so interesting. I've done this now in my class probably for, 5 semesters. And every single time it's a little bit different, but we still see similar roadblocks on websites. That too much copy. I tried to complete the action in the form, didn't submit. I looked for it here on the website, but couldn't find it. And then some people are just doing it really well. So if you're not doing that check-in of like, I have a really great message, I've targeted my audience really well, but nobody's still doing this, it's looking at that kind of customer workflow and saying, okay, well, where can we best adjust? And what would that take? A few people that I worked with there, they just had too much copy and it pushed all the actions down, or it wasn't optimized for a mobile phone. So when somebody pulled out their device to make an order, the form was a little wonky and just didn't fit well. And so they abandoned it. So the message connected, but the actual action that we want people to take also has to work. And that's where it's leveraging your own strengths within your business or organization too. We are not recommending that you need to go and build an app or be on every social media platform or hire the best website developer. It's just thinking about the actions and then being able to give that person an experience that matches your brand, but also gets them to complete the work. There are really great third-party tools if you don't have the internal resources, to run a shopping cart, or you can do some selling on social. It's built in, and then apps. They range from low to high cost depending on what you want to do. But as you've probably seen in like food service, some are not investing in delivery apps, they're partnering. So it's thinking through that though. If I want to sell more food and I don't have the ability to deliver with my team, who can I partner with? Who can I look at? How can I kind of pull this together so that the whole customer journey is thought through? And that's where marketing starts to blend with sales and kind of other areas. Because this is the step that marketing usually focuses on 1 and 2, and then 3 is somebody else's job. Well, if 3 is not working, 1 and 2, you just fell off a cliff. Like you didn't get where you needed to go in the where. So that's where this is so important to be thinking about. Where are you driving traffic, especially in digital marketing? One thing my students always love to do is drive people to the homepage of a website. Not a bad thing, because at least they're on the homepage. But if I'm trying to get them to a form or a coupon or more information or a ticketing, lead them directly to that page or that section or that area. There's no reason to add additional steps in somebody's workflow. You wouldn't send somebody in a store to say like, oh, you're looking for aisle 4, but stop in aisle 6 and 8 first and then go to 4, just because I think you might like it. No, like go to aisle 4 down on the left. That's where you'll find what you're looking for. So that's the huge benefit of digital, is we can be very specific of where we want to direct people, and then make sure that that experience is being tested and optimized so that it is doing what we want the user to be able to do.
Yeah, and I was just going to add to that. I think with marketing, it should be all encompassing. And I'm sure many of you are already leveraging different marketing channels to connect with your audiences. And so whenever I was a director of content digital marketing at Harvard University, my team really had to manage 4 different types of brands with 4 very different types of audiences. We were trying to target everyone from middle managers, trying to change their careers, to retirees that were, just starting their retirement life and wanted to pursue different types of classes or types of courses or degrees. And so when you think of your audiences, it's important to understand where those audiences actually what will actually resonate with them and on what specific platforms. And so when you think of your overarching like marketing mix, it should, yes, your website is your bread and butter, but don't be afraid to explore other types of mediums beyond social media or even digital applications. A lot of the content that you all create can resonate with your audiences across various ways. And obviously with your website, there's the paid side of things, and then there's the organic side, which essentially means, when Google, there's over 200 factors that Google utilizes in their algorithm to tell people this content is relevant to you, right? So when someone searches for, I don't know, for sneakers in Lincoln, Nebraska, the search engine is taking over 200 factors and determining what websites Google wants to prioritize. And so that's the organic side of digital marketing. It's really understanding what words are people leveraging to actually search for your brand. Whereas the paid side is just understanding what words can we pay for, right, in order for that algorithm to work in your favor. And so it's important to understand both sides of website optimization. And some simple ways that you can do that is looking on leveraging Google Trends, for example. Google Trends is a great place to start in understanding. I wonder what it looks like if people search for sneakers, right? And like, what are some top trending words that people are using on Google? And then you can say, oh, wow, they're actually calling it, I don't know, Air Jordan. I'm just making this up, but Air Jordans. And then you can integrate that for your actual website. And once you start understanding that people are actually referencing to your brand in different ways, it's really helpful for you to actually integrate some of those keywords onto your website and even on your social media platforms, because it's important that your messaging, the content that you're creating is really consistent, and that your brand, right, it looks familiar to someone who's on your website versus someone who's on your social media platform versus someone who's carrying a brochure, right, of your brand. It should really be consistent across all those areas, because today's consumers are very savvy, and they want to hold brands accountable for various things, whether it's what your brand stands for, what you're selling, how sustainable are you. These are common themes that will drive the motivations behind audiences actually wanting to engage with your brand.
And the other just thing I'd add in the where, and I'll talk a little bit about this in 5 as well, but some of the where might not be things that you own. So like Jemalyn just mentioned, you own your website, you rent space on social media accounts, but there are a lot of spaces within social, so especially like Facebook groups, where there are people talking and interacting and looking for some of the product services, things you offer. Within the recommendations tool, within since the COVID hit, there's a huge Facebook group in Lincoln that is focused on, where should I eat tonight? And being present and aware in those groups. Those are free groups that you can be part of as a community. So where is it that you can also be connecting with people that are future clients, future customers, not to go in there and sell them, but just to be understanding, what are they talking about? What are they needing? Again, what do they need that I can offer them? And how can I build a relationship with them? And that's part of the marketing that doesn't cost money, but it will cost time. But it's a relatively, I wouldn't say new as in it just popped up, but Facebook groups are niche groups, just like, organizations that meet in Lincoln physically together. These are now forming in digital spaces. So they're also really important to keep an eye on. They could be talking positive or negative, or there might be a place in there for a sphere of influence where you can go in there and share, what you're able to do and connect with more people, because they've also, as we talked in step one, they've identified that they're interested in that. So my guess is anybody in that Facebook group who wants to eat takeout is interested in eating and is probably just exploring all of their options in Lincoln. So if you have something that can solve that problem, I have a service or a product that people will consume, it's a good place to be in, and hang out and either gain information about your audience or influence them by building relationships with them as well. So in 4, this goes a little bit with the how. So how do we do this all? I know we're throwing a lot at you. What do we do? How do we connect it? As we think about this, it create awareness and drive traffic. It is like Jemalyn mentioned earlier, what is the best mix? And you don't have to take this mix and say, I need to do all 5 of these bullet points. You don't have to take it and say, I'm going to do really a mix of them. You can really focus on one or see what makes the most sense. As we look at digital, social and digital ads social media allows you to be broad, but also really specific, like I mentioned, either in Facebook groups or depending on the platform. There are also ways to run ads, like Jemalyn mentioned. You can do those through search engine marketing. You can do it through social, depending on how much you know about your audience. Targeting on platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is very, very good. And I don't mean targeting in a bad way, but targeting in like, I just want people in 30 miles around Lincoln to look at this, or bigger, or I just want this slice of life because that's who my product service is most interesting to. You can get really, really focused in, and then you can align a key message with that audience, and it only shows to them. So it's really helping your message with that audience connect versus kind of just a broad message that could go to anybody. As specific as we can be, social digital ads are really helpful, and those don't have to be expensive. Twitter tends to be on the more expensive side, but Facebook and Instagram, depending on your action that you'd like people to take, you can do that pretty economically. And when I do that, we'll talk about it in number 5, but thinking about the budget of what you want to align with some of these actions. Email is probably one of your best mechanisms because people have opted in. People have agreed to receive information from you. And the more information you can receive from them up front, like when they sign up for your email, the more information that you can then tailor to them. So my church sends out an email every Friday, and I know to expect it. It's what it's going to tell me is what's coming up this weekend. I already know when the services are, but they're going to tell me, the information that I'm looking for, but they know I'm going to get that once a week. It's super consistent content, and it's direct into my inbox. They don't have to spend dollars to get to me. They can directly message to me with that information. So if I'm seeking what's coming up at church this weekend, I'm getting that email. Or, hey, we're going to have a special in a week. Here's a coupon. Here's a reason to come in. Here's a thing to buy now. Email is direct to consumer as long as you've collected that list. If you're thinking right now, well, I have no list because I've never thought of that. That's where a lot of that lead is at the beginning. You can lead people to, okay, how do they sign up for your email list? What benefit is it to them? What information can you collect so that you can start building that and then use that as a tactic? Even if you only have 30 people on it, that's 30 people that you can email directly and continue to build that list as it makes sense. Email is also one of the most probably economical you can do a lot of it for free. Obviously you have to put some human time into it, but you can connect it back to your goals and scale it pretty simply. And it's really low risk as long as you have not opted people in that have not legally opted themselves in, because it is illegal to just send emails to people that have not told you they want to be emailed. And you have to respect those privacy laws, or it can cost you a headache and money in the on the other end. The other piece that we always think about with digital marketing that I think is sometimes forgot is partnerships. Who else already is doing this? So if there is a company that you partner with regularly and they already have an email list, that is awesome. And you don't have the skills or the time to build an email list, is there a way you can partner with them? Can you leverage their marketing tactics, their audience, if it matches? What would that look like? We see this a lot with businesses that are, this week we're going to give you a special at this place and a special here. So how do those partnerships work back and forth? Those could be paid partnerships. Those could be, reciprocal partnerships. But don't forget about that piece in the marketing space, because especially if you're smaller or newer, there might be more, you might win faster if you're able to leverage some partnerships. It's always great to make new relationships, but you also can potentially benefit off of some of the work others have done. And hopefully it still connects back to your business. And then in the same vein of that is the influencers. So we think of this more as, who are the customers that are already loyal to you? Who are they that are already talking, and how can you get them to talk more? How can you reward them? So if you have somebody that every time you send an email, they open it and buy something, what are you doing to say thank you to them besides just sending them whatever they ordered? Or if somebody comes in your shop every single Thursday and orders something, how do we take that loyalty and encourage them to broadcast that for us or share it for us? We've seen this in the sense of like contests. You give them free stuff, or you just say thank you. I mean, it doesn't even have to be giving away a bunch of free content. And you look at the content marketing funnel, the best people that are going to be the most beneficial to you are those who are already loyal. So don't forget about them. A lot of times we focus on the beginning of the funnel of getting new people, but retention and rewarding those who have already been loyal is also part of it, and can be really, really beneficial, because they'll have ripples and networks that you probably can't relate to, or you can try to target. But hearing it from a peer-to-peer, especially in younger age, peer-to-peer is super positive. If I'm talking about where I'm eating, where I'm drinking, where I'm buying, where I'm going with my friends, they're seeing that more as a recommendation, but not a sell. It's not an advertisement. So there's kind of rewarding loyalists, and then there's also the paid side of influencing, but that gets a little bit more complex and will probably be a future workshop that we could do.
Yeah, so I think the how is probably the most tactical in terms of how are you going to approach your strategy. Whenever you think of all of these platforms that Tyler just mentioned, what this all boils down to is really content. And so I really do think that the future of advertising, of public relations, of marketing, it's all really becoming integrated because your brand reputation is managed across all of these marketing platforms, and your marketing relationships in terms of what you're selling, right, then impacts your reputation. So everything at the end of the day is really integrated. And so the more you think about your content strategy, and what I mean by a content strategy is, what are your key messages going back to who you're trying to target? What are you trying to say? And how are you going to say it, right? So, at Harvard, we had a content matrix that really helped me understand. Since I was a director of marketing, I was managing a budget, right? And so I had to allocate certain funding to different types of tactics. And hopefully that budget was enough and that it was going to be effective for what the overall goal was. But when you think of different types of content will be more or less expensive depending on what you're trying to do. So something like video, for example, that's a little bit more resource heavy. You have to invest a little bit more dollars if you want a high production valued piece of content like a video, whereas a how-to article in terms of, how to create something or how to stay organized or an infographic with interesting facts about your industry. Think of your content strategy as something broader than your organization. That's essentially the premise of content marketing, is creating content that actually adds value to your consumers, because research shows that if you actually add value to the consumer's life, that they are more likely to stay loyal to your brand over a long period of time. So even if you're producing content that doesn't directly call out your business name or call out the products that you're selling, it can still be quite effective in even bringing traffic to your channels in ways that you didn't even understand, right? So we had a program, for example, that was around sustainability. And so we didn't have to say Harvard sustainability program, right? We just created content around sustainability. We wanted to create content that would add value to an everyday user's life about how they can live a life more sustainably. And so when people were searching for that on social media or on Google, then our content all of a sudden resonated with them, even though it wasn't even Harvard affiliated, but it was just content that they thought was interesting, right? So when you think of the how, be open to a broader sense of your strategy. How can you help make people's lives better in a broader sense, right? Obviously, at the end of the day, all of us have a bottom line to reach, and all of us want to drive traffic to make an action. But oftentimes, in order for someone to get to that point, they have to have a relationship with your brand. And it takes on average, 5 to 6 times for someone to even see your brand logo and even have them remember what they saw, right? And so the more you can give them content that adds value, the more likely they are to resonate. And the other thing I wanted to mention is with influencers. I think we joked around about this last time Tyler and I talked, but with influencers, it doesn't just have to be like these huge influencers that cost thousands of dollars. Influencers are becoming so saturated. There's actually a term in the industry called BIF, which is branded influencer fatigue. People are becoming fatigued with influencers, right? And so when you think of influencers, really think of that from every sense of the imagination. So don't be afraid to consider nano influencers, which is really what the trend is right now. We're moving away from like the Kardashian type of influencer to really niche influencers that make impact within their smaller community. So just because an influencer has, 50 followers, if those 50 followers are going to listen to that influencer as opposed to someone who has 1 million followers and only 20 people are actually going to take an action, don't be caught up in influencing, millions of people when you're only trying to target a specific percentage within the market. So really reshaping the way you think of influencers, and even identifying people like students or people like mommy bloggers or different types of audiences and how you can leverage them is really important.
Alrighty, we're going to round out with kind of the set. So on this one is set your budget and prioritize resources. And the biggest reason we include this is that marketing it can be free and financial, but it's not free in time. There is always, money that you need to allocate to things, prioritize human resources, and understanding that. So marketing, in my opinion, is not free in any sense. There is always some kind of commitment. So we encourage you to kind of set that budget. And I think a lot of that goes back to what Jemalyn just mentioned is, who do we want to reach to? How do we want to prioritize our time? If we know that one thing has the highest margin, is that what we should focus on first? If that's the thing that's going to solve the most, then that's great. But if it's going to be the most time intensive and not have the return, then maybe put it back on the back burner. But thinking about what does your budget look like, and how do you prioritize your resources, either that you already have, that you would maybe need to connect with or leverage if you don't want to do this internally. And as we think about this too, like even just the number 4 in that for prizes, like how do you reward people who are loyal? Like, okay, we want to give away in a year this many dollars in gift cards, but no more. So how do we break that down? But what's our plan for that? So we have a plan. The biggest piece with this is we have to set that plan and then kind of stick to it and then optimize it as we're going. Jemalyn and I can't today tell you exactly what a budget should be for you. without really digging in and understanding your business and your customers and that kind of thing. But we do want to make sure that you understand that you should be putting some money aside for this. And if it needs to be less dollars and more resources or things you already have, or you want to put more attention on leveraging partnerships, there still should be a focus on what is that budget and what are those resources, because we are trying to get people in the door figuratively and actual for businesses that have brick and mortar. But in the digital space, how do we continue to connect with our audience? And is that through relevant content like Jemalyn mentioned that is not necessarily connected to your brand, or is it through paid content only? What do you have resources for? We found some people that are spending, hundreds of dollars in trying to build a social media community when it's just not there. They don't have the resources, the time, or the commitment, but they could reallocate those dollars just in a very specific spend. We hyper target those to a very specific audience. And we think about what is going to be the return. If we're only going to get, one client out of this, then it better be a service that costs a lot. And that's okay. Or if we're trying to get a lot of clients, do we have the human resources to, take all those appointments? Will people be able to actually fulfill what we're trying to sell? But we do really strategic around what we pay for and what we don't. And then how we reward people either in the influencer world or in prizes. But I do think that sometimes prizes people forget, but you want to make them worth it so that people will talk about it and share them. And then also, who's going to do the work? This is where people in marketing sometimes, especially in smaller businesses, like who is the actual person who is going to make the decisions, but also do the work, because you have to put some resources to it if you want it to be done well. It is very difficult to have it as another hat on somebody who doesn't have either experience in it or time to commit to learning it, to understanding it. With like anything in your business, you have employees that do different things, and that should be respected in the marketing piece too, and making sure that it's aligning with what you're trying to accomplish based on kind of steps 1 through 4.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, and sorry if I'm going in and out, my internet connection keeps saying it's unstable. So please give me a holler if you can't hear me. But in terms of media, how I like to prioritize my budget, obviously everyone's budget is going to be very different, whether it's an $8 million budget that I had at Harvard, or it was a $2,000 budget that I had at a nonprofit, when I was managing everything in San Diego for a nonprofit. So you really have to think about how you want to prioritize your budget and your resources. And so I like to split up the types of budgetary items into 2 buckets when I'm setting a budget for resources. It's must-have and opportunity media. And so when you think of must-have media, it's really the bread and butter of what runs your business, right? If you know that Facebook has been working for you, or that your website is what generates the most traffic because of the keywords that you're utilizing, then you should really focus it predominantly a lot of your budget on those items, right? Or even if event marketing is what is really driving a lot of traffic to your store or to your business, then you really want to focus a budget and dedicate the budget that you need in order for that to be successful, because you don't want to self-sabotage yourself by putting a little bit of money in everything and then you're not doing anything right? You really want to be strategic about how you're dedicating your budget to things that are actually working. What's the highest and best use of your time when you think of marketing? Now, the other side to that is opportunity media. And so opportunity media are platforms that you should test, right? All of us want to know, well, how is, Instagram going to work? Or I know in my case, I was really trying to better understand LinkedIn. Obviously, we were an educational institution, so we were trying to target individuals that had advanced degrees, that had at least a specific title in their working title at their company. And so we wanted to test LinkedIn, even though we never used it before. And so don't be afraid to dedicate a portion of your budget to opportunity types of mediums, where it's like you've never used Instagram or you've never utilized Twitter, go ahead and dedicate $100 or $500 to that and just see how it works. The thing about marketing is that just like artificial intelligence, like when you think of Google, right? A lot of times people are like, how the heck is Google such like a monopoly of a company? It's because of its ability to take information and then give you the information that's relevant to you. That's the whole premise of artificial intelligence, is it gets smarter over time, the more information that mechanism has. And the same thing goes for what you're doing in your business, right? The more information you have, the more targeted content that you can provide your consumers, the more success you're going to see, and the more times you're going to see your consumer come back to your website or to your business. And so don't be afraid to optimize your marketing budget in real time. Maybe you dedicate once a month, at the first week of the month, you take a look at your budget and you say, well, how is Facebook performing? How much is it costing me per click or per acquisition? And when I say acquisition, it means like someone actually bought something or someone actually took an action that you wanted them to take. And so don't be afraid to optimize your budget and say, wow, Facebook is really working well. LinkedIn is not working so well, and it's really expensive to be that targeted. So you know what? I'm going to take some money out of my LinkedIn pool and dedicate it towards Facebook. This idea is called optimization. And the more you can optimize your budget in real time, the more success you're going to see year over year when you're actually looking at trend line wise, right? Like what trends are actually working for you on a longer term basis.
Alrighty, and I know we've thrown a lot at you and we're getting close on time, so we're gonna look through the last, this is kind of just a summary of what we just talked about. So if you wanna take a screenshot, obviously the presentation will also be available later. But this is kind of just the who, what, where, how, and set was what we kind of talked about today. But to help you move forward today, the next week, and the next month, we do want you to think, kind of focus on three. We found that with these types of presentations, conversations, it's easy to get overwhelmed and then shut down, or get overwhelmed and not know where to start. So we try to keep it in the rule of three. What are three things you can do differently starting today? What about next week? And what about the end of the month? So just try to break it down into smaller chunks that allow you to really create that focus. As Jemalyn said, and what we talked about at the beginning, it is messy on the surface, but once you start walking through these steps and then kind of prioritize where you want to start and realize that you can start in one place and then move slowly through it and then add on something new or try something new. But it is that kind of priority and focus that will lead to the best optimization. And the awesome thing with digital marketing is you can see that information real time. So like Jemalyn said, you could be doing this monthly. You could be looking at it weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever frequency makes sense. Probably not daily. Don't watch your daily dollars because that could lead to some anxiety, but let it work a little bit. But the one benefit of digital, which is a benefit and a kind of stinks, is we can optimize. So we do have to commit that time and think about what it will take to keep moving forward. But if we can break it down into smaller chunks, like today, next week, end of the month, the goal is that at least you have a plan. And as a team or some accountability partners, you can think through those steps to lead to your success. So I know we have about 10 minutes open, and I think either Todd or Katie are going to help facilitate Q&A as people have questions. I'll stop sharing my screen just so people can see. But thank you very much for your time this morning. We appreciate it. And as you have questions, I don't know, Todd, do you want them in the chat or do you want them just to unmute?
Either way, I think, again, yeah, appreciate the informative presentation, Tyler and Jemalyn. So yeah, a lot to take in there. I know a lot of people are probably doing a lot of stuff, but yeah, if you are uncomfortable talking on this, you can put it in the chat, but yeah, go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a question. And I may have a few myself, but yeah, I'll open it up for the group to start asking some questions.
And I think I can see everybody. So if you want to unmute or raise your hand or whatever, we can call just to keep it organized. Diane, it looks like you're already unmuted. So we'll let you kick us off.
Yeah. Well, we have a small business, Burlington Antiques, and one of our main things is hitting trying to figure out how to hit younger demographics. because, you know, a lot of our customers unfortunately are kind of
Dying.
what do you say? They're getting old. How do you say that nicely? They're, you know, they're aging and they're not buying anymore. So we've been trying to hit things like Instagram, trying to get some younger people, but advertising on Instagram is still like trying to figure it out. We've done a lot with Facebook and that's been pretty successful. And I know they're connected to a certain point, but do you have any tips on getting your presence more known on Instagram as far as being able to sell?
Sure.
I was gonna just chime in. So I think two things. First of all, I love that you own an antique shop. I actually think that antiquing and thrifting is a culture right now, or a subculture of what you're seeing Generation Z participate in. Generation Z is very into sustainability and things that are larger than themselves. And I think what your business represents is a portion of that, right? You're taking goods and you're reselling them to make sure that they're not just gone to waste. And I think that you can leverage that type of messaging in your marketing and your advertising. I would even recommend identifying an influencer or two. Maybe they're your regular customers and you have them take fun photos and create content on your behalf. The best way to understand an audience is to take one of those audience members and have them create content for you, so you can actually understand, oh, wow, I never even thought of like posing that way in that chair and putting it outside in the middle of the street and making it look like an awesome model shoot, right? Like, have fun and be creative in terms of identifying who those people can be. But in terms of your digital platforms, I would say even leveraging hashtags, that's really important in digital marketing. And I always tell clients to focus on 3 types of hashtags. So you want to focus on a larger hashtag, something that's international, very broad, something like hashtag shopping, or hashtag whatever your topic that you want to focus on, or biking or sustainability, like very broad hashtag that millions of people will look up on Instagram. Then you want a medium-sized hashtag, and that's market specific. So whether that's hashtag Nebraska, hashtag Midwest, or a middle-sized hashtag will help you reach like medium audiences. And then you want a smaller hashtag that reaches out very specific to the community that you're in. So whether it's hashtag Lincoln, or LNK, or downtown Lincoln, or hashtag whatever, the university, right? Like, it's a whole community in downtown. So I always tell clients to include 3 hashtags and no more than that. Maybe a 4th one is okay, but Instagram's algorithm will deprioritize your content if you include too many hashtags. Like, that flags them, saying that you're spammy, and they don't want that type of content to their consumers. So make sure that you're being strategic about the type of hashtags you're using.
Great. That's great. I like that, because I do hashtag, but I don't know where you stop. That's the other thing, because with antiques, you can hashtag a ton of things. So I like that you let me know that to kind of focus more on the hashtagging. I didn't realize that they flag you as spam if you do that. So thank you.
Yeah, and Diane, quickly on some of that as well, like I could see with, like Jemalyn saying, is some of the benefit of an antique is the idea of sustainability. So if some of it too is making sure that your message is connecting with that younger audience who is conscious about sustainability, or conscious about reusing things versus throwing things away. So it's less come by now, but more look at what we have. Come and look at what you explore, and think about the content in what could they use? Because especially a lot of our young people in Lincoln throughout the academic year, they might be living in smaller apartments or other things. So they're not looking for giant antiques if that's what they're assuming you offer. So be thinking about, if the younger audience, what do you have within your shop that would connect with them, and how do you highlight, things they could purchase that would, they could purchase now, but also like not just focus on sustainability, but what's the benefit of antiques, not just, having a product, because you can get a product anywhere, but why is a product that is being reused or is older, like why is that a benefit to them? Like Jemalyn said, thrifting and antiquing is a culture, and we're seeing it more and more with younger people who are more conscious and aware that not everything has to be purchased at Target brand new.
Great, thank you guys.
Yeah. And Jane, I know your message about SEO companies. I don't have specific companies in mind. I think with that, there are some really good resources online for like kind of a worksheet type activity to be thinking about it first, because SEO can be really messy and confusing, and then you spend a lot of money with companies that, you know, don't always lead to results. So I think SEO companies are super valuable, but what I always recommend is doing your own work up front and then meeting with the company so that you have an idea of what you want to accomplish. You could spend a lot of time and money on a partner that is going to walk you through all the steps, but I think you could also do some of those steps your own if you're comfortable with that. But SEO companies are tough. There are some digital marketing firms that do SEO, but I'm not familiar if like that's their major focus.
Okay.
So I can look around. I have a few contacts and we can send them back through Todd and Katie just to make sure that you get that as well.
Yeah, we've done, like, we pull it up and look at it and it's so overwhelming. So
Yeah.
we used to have a website and then we got rid of it. And then in April, we launched a new website. And so we're trying to get back into like the being pulled for Birkenstock and that type of thing in Patagonia. So I was just curious.
Yeah,
It's
it's
all over.
yeah, it's a tough, I mean, SEO is tough in general. But a lot of it though can be less stressful if you have a little bit of focus at the beginning of what you really want to accomplish. And then like Jemalyn said, how do we focus around the local? Because competing Patagonia and stuff broadly difficult, but locally, how do we make sure the content is localized?
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say SEM and SEO are so that could be a whole other session. But in terms
Right.
of SEO, like what I would always tell clients is that there's different types of keywords, and so you just want to be cognizant. Are you really trying to leverage like trademarked keywords because of your competitors, and you're trying to make sure that that's prevalent in your meta tags, or are you trying to leverage non-trademarked words or long tail? Like think of how people are searching for your content. Now it's showing that 30% of consumers are now using things like Siri and voice activated keywords to actually search for businesses. So how we talk to technology is different than how we type into Google. And so even the way that people are talking about our brands are different, and that can influence our overall approach. So I can talk about this forever. So if you have more questions, Jane, I'm happy to connect with you offline.
Okay, thank you. No, I do. That's great to know though. Thank you.
Yeah.
And it looks like Renee asked a question too about her gym at 19th and O. I would say, Renee, just kind of off the top of my head, as you're thinking about that, that's as a new business, I'd be looking for, you know, complementary businesses that you can partner with and connect through. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, probably event marketing is a little bit harder, but I think it's still possible. So specifically in regards to like fitness and working out, I would really focus on what's the benefit that your business provides to the audience and who do you really want to attract. Fitness is very broad, but if you can be very focused on the type of fitness that you offer, and that doesn't mean it limits you, but it helps you create that focus, you can at least tailor what you're working on. And then always expand. Sometimes if you're a business that does a lot of things, it's difficult to then prioritize where you want to focus your attention and where you want to focus your marketing. So who are the type of people that you want to have in your gym? And I would focus on them first and then see how it expands from there.
And just two quick things, I know we're at time, is geo-targeting. One thing that's really effective for small businesses is geo-targeting. So targeting ads for people based off of their location in proximity. So maybe you want to set geo-targeting within 10 miles of your organization, and that can help drum up some business. The other thing is just partnerships. So if you can establish a partnership with a hotel or with a local apartment complex, and then actually assigning like a vanity URL, so you know all of your business coming from these two types of businesses are from that specific tactic, that will help you understand how effective that's going to be as well. So good luck.
Jemalyn, Vanity URL remind me of a quick question that I have. I know a lot of our retailers and restaurants, you know, have customers obviously that come in, and when they're on site, what's the best way to get them engaged with you and stay with you digitally? Is it QR codes on site? Is it vanity URLs to have people sign up for this, or just physical brochures or business cards to say, sign up for our newsletter, or come back for this, or go to our website? Is there any best practice of that you think can help make sure your customers stay engaged with you beyond leaving your store?
I look at that, Todd, as what's the value? So like, what value can you continue to offer them, and how do you frame it? And I think a lot of that happens with training of employees. By encouraging somebody just to sign up for your newsletter, it's a tactic, but I don't know what value as a consumer it adds. So it's, you know, oh, I saw you purchase these things. We put those on sale all the time. Join our newsletter so that you can get the coupon for next time, or let me give you that coupon, or hey, when that candle runs out, you can order more online if you're not local, or here's a coupon to go to our website to do something. Like, a lot of times we think tactic, but not benefit to the consumer. So we can give them a business card, we can give them a flyer, we can ask for their email, but a way to make sure that actually becomes something and not just extra stuff is helping it tie back to what's the benefit to them. So, you know, I think about the salon example, sorry, but like, as you leave, like, hey, I use this in your hair today. Don't you like how it feels? Take this home with you, and you can do this too, and we'll see you in 4 weeks. So the benefit is continued on that individual versus, hey, there's products on the wall, go pick something. You know, it ties it very specifically to that consumer, which if you can have that, difficult in some businesses, a little bit easier in others, but if you can tie it back to what they're interested in, you've personalized it, and it's not 100%, but it's a little bit closer than just asking them to complete a task.
Yeah, I was just going to say incentivizing, which is what Tyler just mentioned. Then very quickly, that I would think through like your funnel. And if people are already at your business, you know that they've already bought into your key message or what you want them to do. And so I would just encourage you to look at the overall funnel, because I know for us, when we were trying to increase the number of email newsletters, our number one driver to that was actually social media. And so, and we thought it was the opposite. We were focusing on email to draw more attention to our social media platforms, but then we had to switch the way that we created content. So we were like, no, we need to budget more money on social media. And then that's actually the number one driver for people to sign up for email newsletters. And the more you can do gated types of content, where it's like, you know, I'll give you top 10 interview tips or whatever, and you only give them one. And then if they want the rest, they have to give you an email address. Like, don't be afraid to gate your content either, because people will give you emails for content, especially if it's something they want to read.
That's great. Appreciate it. Any final questions for Jemalyn and Tyler? All righty. All right, that will conclude this workshop. And again, I really, really appreciate this. This has been super informative. A lot of good feedback from last one. I'm, you know, as we get more people watching this, I'm sure that's going to come too. So we'll keep everybody informed. If you have any questions for either Jemalyn or Tyler, feel free to contact us, and we can, you know, flow information through them and get those questions out there. But again, I really appreciate it. I know how busy you both are right now, and yeah, it's really an important time that you've given us. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.